it is appropriate to use only the lingua franca of the place where you are. And that place is America, and that lingua franca, or that language that is prevalent here, is English. And so there is this, within the last 30 or 40 years, 40 years, there is always this push that we should eliminate the original language in which the gospel was presented. Now again, barring the fact that it was Aramaic and translated, what it was read in was Greek. So the church, the Orthodox Church, has fought back against that. The reason is that as those of you that can speak another language, whether it's Greek or Spanish or Romanian or Albanian, whatever that is, all of us know that to truly understand a language, you have to be enculturated in it. Language is not just about words. Language is about culture, because in order to understand the person, you've got to understand the culture that they came from. This gospel was written in a particular culture, and the Greek helps us to understand what that culture was. And so if we don't translate properly and we become a slave to our translators, then we lose something vital. And this gospel is a wonderful example of that. All of us have heard this gospel before about the accounting of the king. But I don't know if we've really understood the depth at which this parable is meant to address. So, who's the audience here? Who is Jesus speaking to? Is he speaking to the Jews? Well, if we read, it says, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king, Vasilea. Okay, well, that is not a word that the Jews would use. They do not honor the king. They did not honor Caesar. So this already begins offensive to the Jews. So this must be written to some other audience. This is written to the Hellenic world, because the Hellenic and the Roman worlds understand the idea of a king, and a king was compared to God. So when they hear this, the readers hear this parable, omithi I vasiliat uranon, can be compared, right, to anthropo vasili, a person who is now king, comparing that to the kingdom of heaven. This is written for a Gentile audience, specifically Hellenic and Roman. The other way that we know this is because later on, it says he owed him 10,000 talents, and so he could not pay. The Lord ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. Jews did not do this. Jews did not, now as punishment, then order that in order to pay your debt, I'm putting your family in prison. So this is not a Jewish audience, okay? But the way it's written, you would understand the audience to whom Jesus is speaking. Then it goes on and it says, what? The servant fell on his knees and implored him. Here is where we get to the difficulty. He fell on his knees and implored him. Is that what it says in the Greek? I don't know. It's here. What it says. Peson on odulus proskinevi. So he fell down before the king, and when we use the word proskiniso, if you look in the liturgy books and you look at all the words, the way that we translate proskiniso is worship. We don't translate it as implore or beg. We don't beg God, we worship him. So here we have now this servant falls down at the feet of this king and worships him, saying, and that is very offensive to the Jewish culture. But it's not offensive to the Hellenes and to the Romans because they did worship those kings as God. So this makes sense. So this clearly, if we know what we're reading and we understand how to correctly translate the words and not soften them so that they sound good to modern ears, now we have an understanding of who this is written for and the message that is coming across. So it goes on then, and it says, out of pity for him, the Lord of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. This now is offensive to the Hellenes and the Romans because it would be understanding to the Jews because now we have mercy, which the one true God has offered mercy. But this is not the culture of the Hellenes and the Romans. You have done something wrong, then we seek justice. Now, not torture or anything like that, but you have made an offense, then you will do right by that offense. So to hear now that he forgave, and this is a huge debt. I mean, the parable is very clear, 10,000 talents. I mean, in the other stories, they were grateful that they got a couple of denarii a day, and here we've got talents. So for the king to forgive this large a debt, this is now an insult to the Roman and the Hellenic culture. So Jesus is trying to show the great mercy now that is being offered by this king. And the words that are used here, makrothemison. This is the same words that the Septuagint uses to express God's infinite mercy. He is far removed, makroapo. He's from that anger, he is very far from that. So this is even more insulting because now the king, seeing this servant abusing the 10,000 talents and not paying him back, now even has greater mercy on him and forgives the debt. Whew. So when we understand now the words that are being used in the original language, we can understand how brutal this is to the reader. And then, this is the part that is always missed because the servant is forgiven the debt, and then he finds his fellow servant, syndulos. He finds his servant, and now what does he do? He says, pay me what you owe, 100 denarii. Okay? And then what does he do? He shows him no mercy. All right? And everybody says, okay, he shows him no mercy, and this is the lesson we're supposed to learn. Aha. But we have to go a little bit further because what does it go on to say? When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were distressed. And what did they do? Did they show mercy on the servant? No, they went right back to the king and they said, hey, look what's taken place here and we want justice. That's the Hellenes and that's the Romans. We have been offended and we want justice. It's not just about the servant now who didn't have any mercy on his fellow servant, but it's equally now the people who say, we demand justice, and they go to the king and they want that justice from the king. So at the end, what Jesus says here in the last line, so also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you. This includes everyone in the parable, not just the servant who grabbed the other servant by the throat and showed no mercy. It says every one of you, banda. And so those of us now who are continuously in a state of seeking vengeance, we will be judged also. So if we're the person who is grabbing the servant by the throat, certainly we will be judged for that. But equally so, if we are one of the crowd who now seeks justice and vengeance against someone else, then we will be judged just as harshly. So we have to read the Gospels very carefully and not pass over all the characters that are in here. The king, representing the Gentile world, the servant, who now represents not understanding and having mercy, and the fellow servants who also then declare, we do not have mercy on you, and we want you to punish now this servant for what he has done, which you have offended and you have been unjust. And what Jesus says is, in each case, we must always be that one that is makrothemion, which is our anger must be pulled back from what we see as justice being done. So we have to be very, very careful when we are judging others, not only just what we do to others.